Welcome to another edition of CrossDoc. Race 3 in our local SoCalCross series took us to one of the most scenic, unique, and challenging courses on the calendar, Storm the Beach Cross in Oceanside. For any cross race, the start is key. A good start allows you to be in the front group during the first tricky section. The first group usually makes it through intact, but the chasers are often forced to slow down and they get gapped. And if you're in the front and still bobble, well, at least you're hopefully close enough to the leaders to catch back up. For this course, that first tricky section was the sand. I quickly realized the importance of momentum, line choice, and cadence. I had decided to ride, but my position in the pack slowed down my momentum and narrowed my line choices. I was forced to slow down, dismount, then start running. We'll see the importance of this forward movement throughout the race. But by being in front, I was still able to maintain contact with the leaders. Another key section was this fast downhill into a loose sandy left-hander. Garrett handles it well because he dismounts midway before he actually comes to a stop. This preserves his forward momentum. I'm not nearly as smooth, and you can see that gap open up. The next lap, I tried the inside line to get to the front, but you can't corner in sand like you can on other terrain. I again lose momentum and have to slow down. I should have entered the sand straight on, or decided to run before I slow down, like the velocity rider does on my left and gets ahead. This episode is all about forward momentum. Nothing stops forward momentum like a crash. It sounds obvious, but a really useful tip is don't crash. Another reason to be in front. And since you can pick your line, you can go the speed you want. If riders in front of you slow down and you want to keep your speed up, crashes could happen. Being in front and choosing your line, speed, and cadence is really highlighted here. Brian's in front and he is able to keep his line and his cadence. He makes it through the sand while I again get bogged down. Looking back, I kept losing time in this section each and every lap. Coming off the beach was just as challenging. I showed this clip because my goal was to shoulder the bike and run. But by this point, I was in the hurt locker and I had to push the bike. Pushing is usually slower because you're already slower while running, and now you're just adding the extra resistance of pushing the bike. Next lap, I'm thinking I've learned from my mistakes in the sand. I hit the sand in the front and with speed, but my line choice is still poor. I slide out and lose my position. You can only make so many mistakes before you can no longer catch up.
Not what I was trying to do.
Good technique is when course features never force you to stop. But expert technique is when course features never force you to slow down. In this sand section, I at least dismount before stopping, so I'm still constantly moving forward. Forward momentum also applies to remounting. Here I run a little further to get to firm ground, not sand, before getting back on the bike. Being in the right gear also helps, especially when you're going uphill. Here, Brian lets me recover a bit before we start trading pulls. Even though your individual skill is important in cross, drafting and working tactically with others still plays a role. By doing this, we're able to catch up to the next group. But it's your individual skill that allows you to stay in the group. I eventually get dropped and I'm riding solo. I had to use the skill of keeping it pinned even when riding by myself. Riding by myself meant I was now able to pick my own lines and keep my momentum. And what do you know? I actually get through the sand. Now, I need to do that at the front of the race without getting dropped. Besides the sand, the other challenging parts were the uphills, which were all conveniently placed right after run-ups. Switching from riding muscles to running muscles and back again was just, As the race wound down, I realized that even though you can nail every section in practice, that's different from nailing it at race pace with people around you and while your heart rate is going through the roof. I need to get better at doing that. Race done. It was a tough course for me, but I knew where I was losing time, the sand and the running sections. This is what I have to work on in practice. This race also emphasized the importance of maintaining forward progress. I realized there should never be a time when my front tire stops moving, which is easy to detect on these videos. Transitions on and off the bike, dismounting, running, these are all times that I need to keep the bike moving forward. I got a 10th place, which I was a little disappointed with, but I was able to learn plenty of lessons. And it was fun to hang with the family and see the smiles on my kids' faces. Thanks for watching another episode of CrossDoc, and I hope to see you out at the races.